Welcome to the Financial Sense series. I am your host, Judy McCutcheon. I am an experienced financial educator, consultant, and coach. Most of our challenges surrounding money come from the things that we have been taught and our experiences with money as children. Studies show that 80% of our mindset around money is formed by age 10. That is why I have created the 30-day money mindset detox program. This program is for the woman who wants to enjoy more freedom to be who she is, more freedom to express herself authentically, and more freedom to live life on her terms. So, if you are that woman and you're ready to take control of your life and your finances, join me this Saturday for the Money Mindset Detox mini course. Registration closes at 7 p.m. tonight. Don't get left behind. Click on the link below to register. After you've registered, be sure to look out for the confirmation email to verify your subscription. Money is undoubtedly one way for us to turn the dreams we have into the reality we live. It doesn't matter how you think or feel about money. One thing for sure is that you feel stressed and out of control when you don't have any. You either master money or money masters you. Thank you for being with us today. Joining me today are Shireen Wilkinson, Magdalena Cooper, and Chantel Maguire, who will hopefully join us later. Shireen is a member of the law firm of Wilkinson and Wilkinson in Grenada. She is a member of the bar in Grenada, Barbados, and the British Virgin Islands. She is engaged in general practice, specializing in civil litigation, alternative dispute resolution, property law, family law, estate planning and succession planning law, public private international law, public law, debt collection, and consumer protection law. Welcome, Shireen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you
Magdalena,
to be here.
Mag- Magdalena is a licensed life insurance sales representative and a pension consultant at Solid Life and General Insurance Brokers in Jamaica. She is also a partner at Milestone and Planning Services, sorry. She is the author of the book, Oops, I Forgot to Plan for Retirement. One of Magdalena's many skills is pre retirement financial planning and lifestyle planning. Magdalena is also a member of the Jamaican Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. Welcome, Magdalena. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
will just say briefly, Chantel, she isn't here, but I'll still say who she is. So when she joins us, you'll know. She's an actuary who has worked in investment banking and asset management, managing portfolios upwards of 200 million US dollars. She has managed some of the largest pension funds in the United States, and most recently, she's back in Grenada using her expertise in pension reform to assist governments in the Caribbean. So, ladies, welcome and thank you very much for being here as we continue the discussion on personal finance and planning for a financially sound future. Now, today, our theme for today is retirement planning and generational wealth. We never think about retirement at the time when we should be thinking about it. Many people start thinking about retirement when it's almost too late, so they end up working right into their senior years. That's a time when I believe that they should be enjoying the fourth quarter of their lives, doing the things that bring them the most joy. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with working into your senior years. However, what I believe is that it should be something you want to do and not something you have to do. And retirement planning, I want to emphasize this to everybody. Retirement planning is not for old people, it is for smart people. And it's never too early to start planning for your retirement. Another thing that we're culturally deficient in is that of building generational wealth. We want to be remembered for the right reasons. I'm sure we do. So when you die, this is something I learned in life insurance. When you die, you don't want your loved one to be crying, one because they missed you, and two because they're wondering, how am I going to be paying these bills now? Right? You want to leave them very well secured. So one of my missions and one of the reasons why I'm doing this is to ensure that as a people we start thinking forward where our finances are concerned. So once again, thank you, ladies, and I'm going to get right into it. So the first thing I want us to talk about is retirement and retirement planning, right? I want to look at the planning that is required to ensure people live the kind of life they want in their retirement years. But before we go into it, I want us to define retirement and retirement planning, because we have people who think, well, retirement, when you that's you're 60 or you're 65, that is probably 40 years away. I don't need to think about that now. So I have one definition, but I'm going to ask you to first, tell me let us define for our audience what is retirement and what is retirement planning. Magdalena, I don't know if you want to lead with that.
Yes, I do. I need to be unmuted. Yes, I'm unmuted. Okay, first of all, I must tell the audience who is listening from wherever you are, this is one of the best programs I've been on so far. I must congratulate Judy for having an actuary on this group and also for having an attorney. Those are the links. And if you're looking at retirement financial planning, financial lifestyle plan, you need to have these two people. So if you don't have them, please find out from them where they are and get in touch with them. So that's really fantastic. So the notes I've made is saying that with regards to retirement planning, first of all, people need to know that the retirement planning phase or process, I should say, has two phases: the accumulation phase and the distribution phase. These two phases apply whether it is in reference to the financial side or the lifestyle side. Because, the financial side, you're accumulating the money; in the lifestyle side, you're working, and then one day somebody says to you, you have to go home. Hence, retirement planning should really be restated as retirement financial and lifestyle planning. That's what I am thinking it ought to be stated as. That's why I'm so happy that Judy, our host, including today's attorney in the program today, an attorney and an actuary, because if you look at every Caribbean island, they have to have an actuary in the matter of retirement plans because they're the ones who have been licensed by law to do that kind of work. And you also need the legal side because there are a number of cases that have gone to the courts as well, but I won't get into that right now. Um, so that would be my opening remarks. I have some other comments on it in terms of the kind of questions. Can I go on and address that? The kind of questions that people should be asking? Go ahead.
No, no, not as yet, Magdalena.
Okay.
We'll just take them step by step.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
interested to know, from an actuarial standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
Chantel, how do you define retirement and retirement planning?
Sure. I think Magdalena hit the nail on the head. You have to think about the accumulation phase and the distribution phase. And when I saw that question, what came to mind, I tried to keep it as high level as possible. If I go into all the intricacies of retirement planning as from an actual perspective, I believe I could lose y'all very quickly. But for me, when I thought about what does it mean for retirement, I define retirement as the phase in your life where you are no longer working or you're working partially. This is your slowdown phase. That was the first thing that came to my mind, right? And then most most importantly, I think, is you need to think about retirement planning. That's what you need to really define and focus on. And I define retirement planning as the financial strategies um, that you employ to the phase of life where you have ceased working. So you really need to think about exactly how you're going to sustain yourself in retirement and what financial strategies are you going to use to make sure that you can sufficiently cover all your expenses. And a lot of different facets that come into retirement that people don't understand. And for instance, like the percentage of salary that you're going home with, that is very key to making sure that you have sufficient amounts of money in retirement. So a lot of people might just be putting away money willy-nilly, but they don't know how and how much they will have in retirement. So you really need to think about, the two phases, like Magdalena said, the accumulation phase and then the distribution or income phase. You need to think about, in that income phase, how much do I want to be going home with? And how much do I need to be going home with? A lot of people, unfortunately, like for instance in Grenada, I think through NIS, the average person was going home with like 45%. So if you only dependent on NIS Social Security, like you're barely going home with half of your salary, if you're older. So because it's a young institution. So you need to really think about, how am I going to make up that difference? And not just depend on, you really need to think about what percentage of salary you're going to be going home with it. And like, to me, that should be the key element of your financial planning, because you need to think about what could really sustain you in retirement.
And as you were talking, something came to mind that George Foreman said. He said, "Is that not at what age you would retire, but at what income?" And I think that has become very, very key for people. For me, I see retirement as achieving a state of financial wellness and security so that you can live the lifestyle you desire. That's my concept of what retirement planning is. We'll move on, but Magdalena, you wanted to come back?
Want to come back. Yes. And I just want to add to what Chantal said. And that is what I did in researching the law over many years as well here in Jamaica. The retirement planning is really about planning for three life events: disability, old age, and death. And what has happened is we focus so much on old age that when death happens and the person is younger, that's why you get the bawling at the graveside, because they don't know what the person has left behind. So we need to look at disability as well and death along with old age. Those three life events you need to be planning for. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, Chantal, as an actuary.
You do need to, especially when you're older, if you have dependents, etc. I'm sure you don't want to leave them crying and not having the financial stability to sustain their life. So those are key elements, and just medical expenses. That's like a huge, huge cost in retirement. And I don't think a lot of people understand it that well. And to tell you the truth, there may not even be as much products out there to really help you with your medical expenses. So when you think about the income you're bringing home, you have to consider, hey, when you're older, you usually get way sicker and you have to spend a lot more money on medical expenses. Yes, you're not traveling to work every day, so you may not have to spend as much money on, just day-to-day things, but medical expenses tend to be a huge part of the cost affiliated with, you in retirement. So can you, whatever you taking home as income, can that sustain it? Can you find, like I would say, try as early as possible to find a good policy to help you with your medical expenses. And I think there could be a lot more innovations in that space in general.
Yes, definitely, definitely. One of the things, as you were both saying, is that retirement planning is a multi-step process that evolves, right? It starts by thinking about your retirement goals and how long you have to meet them. What are some of the questions? And I'm going to ask this question of Magdalena. What are some of the questions people should be asking themselves as they begin the planning process?
What I would say there is that the questions you ask is also based on a comment you made in your opening remarks, and that is, if you haven't had ancestors or parents who are teaching you when you're young what retirement financial planning is, a life financial lifestyle plan, then you'll find that you may not achieve it as well as you ought to achieve it. So that's one of the first things that we need to look at. But one of the other questions that we need to ask is, especially between ages 18 to 25, is what are my plans that I have available to me in terms of whether it is the state benefits or whether it is what my employer provides. And we need to know that in all of this, there's legislation. I don't know about you guys, but was never told anything about the legislation related to all of these plans, like Social Security or NIS, as we call it in Jamaica. And we have some other plans like in Jamaica, like National Housing Trust and so on. But nobody tells you about the law and how it works. They tell you, oh, it's a good plan, just join it, but they don't tell you what the law is. The other thing that I think a person needs to know is that you need to know what's your right and when to claim, because each plan, as I have found out over time, pays a benefit at different ages. So you may decide you want to go at age 65 or 60, when in fact the plan is not going to pay anything until age 70, and there are some rules to go with it. So knowing the age you want to go off at, and then knowing, you have to ask yourself that question, and then knowing what you're going to do. So for instance, if you have been able to have ancestors who've left you a good bit of capital for you for your retirement, then you can retire whenever you want to. But if you don't have the capital, you really have to know when you can retire from when you can't. The final point I want to make on this, I'll make some more later on, but because I'm a very passionate person on this subject, so forgive me. The other thing I'd like people to ask is, what are my sources of retirement income? So if you look to on the screen, I think it's your left, my right, you will see that I have a poster up there. What I've found in the Caribbean is that we don't have a lot of visuals in this area of retirement planning. So we talk, but we don't have any visuals. So what I did for Jamaica is I actually designed this poster, which says the 7 sources of retirement financial planning. And it tells you as well what the sources are based on Jamaica. It also brings in a cultural aspect of it, which is children. A lot of people in Jamaica say their children are their retirement or their pension. And so I've put it in there as well, but showing them that it's at the way top, because you can't really, really have your children saying that when you've had an opportunity to do it. The other point I want to make there quickly is your plans are really influenced as to whether you're married or you're single, or if you're cohabiting, or if you're, like I said before, if you're married. There are laws in Jamaica that address all of those. So for instance, in Jamaica, if you're cohabiting with a man or a woman, man with a woman, for less than 5 years, you won't get any of the state benefits. But if you are married, you're entitled to the state benefits. So there's a number of those issues based on the law. That's why I'm glad that Shireen is here, because the law, we cannot keep talking about this without bringing in the law as well. You have to include the law as well as what the plan, because the plans are really influenced by the law.
Okay. Thanks, Magdalena. Chantel, what are some of the first steps that people should take as they start the planning process?
Well,
And sorry, and the second part of the question, because somebody just asked it and I want to make sure that I bring it out. At what age? Because the person just asked if 50 is a good age.
personally, 50 is too young in this day and age. People are living longer, and in general, it's you won't be able to accumulate enough wealth to retire unless you may be a billionaire or had a really amazing career or something that, or you just want to live very basic. Even if you like, it's very hard to retire at age 50. As you can see, like a lot of social security systems, a lot of retirement plans, they're all pushing out the age. at which you could start taking retirement benefits. And the reason for that is that it is becoming real costly to be able to sustain a retirement benefit, like to continue paying monthly benefits to people if they retire too early. So in general, I think I won't be surprised by the time I am about to retire, the age would be like 70 because people are living longer. So that is kind of what factors in to the retirement benefits, and I guess what drives a lot of the laws and etc. as to when you can get retirement, etc. Because for them to sustain the payments out, they need to think about how long people are living. So, and that's like one of the key aspects to the actual world. Looking at these mortality studies, seeing how much people, need, etc. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
No, I was saying to you that the question from the viewer is if 50 is a good age to start planning.
Oh, planning. Oh, I thought it was retired. No, definitely not. You should start planning since you're like in your 20s. It's so funny. Like, I did a financial workshop, and to me, the key takeaway that, I wanted to bring across here as well is that from the time you start to work, you should really be trying to save 20% of your money, right? 50% I say is for your basic needs, 30% of your salary should be for your wants, and 20% should be for your savings, right? And that could include like your retirement savings, just like cash that you want to make sure for a rainy day. Like you should really have a fund that you could get like 6 months salary. We all saw what happened in this pandemic. People lost jobs, and you need to be able to sustain yourself for a long time. So as you start working, you should start saving. And the earlier you save, the reason why you have to save when you're like 20, it actually reduces your burden on you when you get older. Because if you start saving at 50, the accumulation period you have is like what, 10, 15 years? And that's not enough to build up the wealth that you would need to sustain you when you retire for another, like say you retire for 20, 30 years, right? You can imagine that you're saving for 15 years and then you plan on retiring for like 20 years. Like it doesn't add up, and because you only like saving a fraction of your salary. So, but if you start earlier, what you realize is that, say you didn't do the 50-30-20 rule I'm discussing, and you just put away like 10% of your income, the accumulation that you're going to get on that, the interest bill, despite you putting your money in the right places, that's another thing I, probably will touch on later. But the accumulation that you can make if you make the right investments makes it the financial burden on you and the lifestyle you want to live a lot easier. So you always have to start as early as possible. Like in your 20s, just save something, like, and do think about where you're putting your money, because when you're in your 20s, you could save aggressively. You could put your money in like the stock market and get like ridiculous returns. And yes, you could ride the waves. I know everybody's fearful, and we're going to touch on that, on investing in funds, etc. But you could ride the waves out when you start early. When you're 50, you're scared to lose any capital. And at that point, you trying to just sustain the wealth that you've created. That's more of your focus. And when you only focus on that, it's hard to really accumulate high values of wealth. So, So it's really important to start really young. 50 is way too old. I mean, a lot of people do it in this day and age, but it's 25 years, to it, in my opinion.
Shireen, from an estate planning perspective, I want to hear from you. Are there benefits? What are the benefits of planning early? Like Chantel said, 50 is just way too late. But what are the benefits of starting your first job?
Well, thanks, Judy. Thanks everyone for having me. Greetings to our listeners and viewers. So I think that the benefits to early financial planning for retirement, they're numerous. I mean, but I'll probably highlight just about 6, and they can range from financial benefits to psychological benefits. And why I say psychological benefits is because the first thing that comes to mind when you plan early for retirement, and I'm endorsing what Chantel said and Magdalena, is that you have a peace of mind. You have a sense of fulfillment when you know that you're actually doing something that's going to benefit you and your family by extension later in life. So that, to me, that's one of the most important benefits. It reduces not only your stress, but also the years leading up to your actual retirement. You have this sense of, okay, I can be okay. And as Chantal said, if you get sick or if there's a disability or something happens, you're not stressed out over it and worrying about it. The other thing I think that's a big one in early retirement planning is that you can place all your pre-retirement decisions into a context. So you'll be able to make more efficient, career-minded decisions, general financial decisions, your long-term goals, what you want to do with the rest of your life. If you want to spend it on a cruise ship, just sailing, 365, round and around, here we go. That's when we can cruise again, mind you. You can contextualize all your retirement decisions. If you're married, as Magdalena was saying, you and your spouse, you can get on the same page about what your retirement decisions are and how you want to live the rest of your life together. If you want to travel, spend 6 months overseas, spend 6 months traveling, spend 6 months at home. If you want to go out to dinner every week, what can we afford as our date night every week, or what can we not afford? In certain jurisdictions, it will talk about your tax benefits. When you'll think about your tax benefits, and you couple that with your cost savings, and then you just think of the legacy opportunities, what you want to leave as your legacy. So if you are heavily involved in certain causes, the environment, religion, animals, whatever is your cause, if you want to accumulate wealth towards leaving something for a specific cause, all of those things can factor into your early retirement planning. And I think those are the top 6 decisions as benefits for early retirement planning.
Yep, thank you. When this brings me back to something that both Chantal and Magdalena said earlier. When I was 20, right, retirement was nowhere in my vision, nowhere at all, right? That timeline seems so far off. I mean, you're 20, retirement age is 65, but now I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking, goodness, that was only 25 years. That was 25 years. Now it's 25 years later, right? And what most people don't know is that the time horizon, and I think we have touched on it, the time horizon is one of the most significant factors when planning for retirement. So I'm going to start with Chantel and then move to the other 2 guests. Can you please tell us what is the time horizon? Why people must understand their time horizon and the pitfalls associated with overlooking that time horizon?
Okay, sure. So this kind of builds on the previous point, right? The importance of the time horizon. If I could sum it up into one phrase, it's to build wealth. Build wealth for your retirement. So you need to know your time horizon as to which the period you'll be saving, which we talked about earlier as accumulation period. And then you need to think about the time horizon in which you will be needing the income, right? And the expenses associated with it. So when you think about the accumulation phase and the time horizon that goes into that, the reason I'm telling you to start earlier is because I'm going to give you rough figures, right? Don't quote me on them. But basically, if you start saving in your 20s, you get an additional, maybe you get, you get an additional 15 years to just accumulate versus somebody who starts to think about planning in their 40s or 35. you get another additional 15 years to save. So what that does, that additional 15 years can build up capital that is like double what you would have had if you just saved from 40 to retirement year to 70. So that period that you're saving from when you're 40 to 70, you don't even have to put in as much. You could think about other different things that you're going to do, and even with your wealth, because you're not as financially strapped anymore. You could probably sustain a lower savings rate during that period if you just started earlier. You could probably reduce the percentage of salary you have to put away by, like, more than 15% if you just started 10 years earlier. So it really reduces the financial strain on you when you start earlier, because there's this thing called accumulation. But mind you, this time horizon is very tied to where you put your money. So that's another aspect I think people need to focus on. I'm an actuary, yes, but I also manage money in the markets. My first job out of college was in asset management, right? So I understand the investments world very well. And to me, yes, you can save 10 years. And my biggest issue in the Caribbean here is, like, if you just put your money in a savings account, you don't really get any interest. However, if you put your money in an investment vehicle, such as, stocks or etc., your money will grow so much faster. Like, on average, the stock market returns 10% gains year over year. So if you could leave money in there for over 10, 15 years, you're going to get like 10% returns on average year over year, right? And that is way more than putting your money in a savings account that only gives you like 1% of returns. So when you think about the time horizon, that is very important, right? You have to start earlier so it reduces the financial strain on you when it comes to retirement. And you could have a way better flexible lifestyle if you just start earlier. And however, I always want to caveat that with, you don't want to just put your money in a savings account or under a mattress. You want to do something with your money, even if it's to put it in real estate so you could get guaranteed income, like save up maybe to buy a property or something like that, that you could get this income in retirement. But I also think whenever you think about time horizon, you also have to think about investment vehicles you're putting your money in as well. Because yes, you would save way more if you start earlier, but that could be quadrupled if you put it in the right vehicles. So that's one caveat I wanted to add to the time horizon piece as well.
Well, in the Caribbean, we are not big on investments.
You're not.
It's not part of our DNA, but that's going to be for another episode, because I have that coming up. Magdalena, I know you're passionate. Let's hear you.
Okay. All right. So, what I have done in Jamaica is that I have made the word early for standard plan specific. So, for instance, I have used national insurance or social security, if that's what you have in the other islands. Some of the islands are different, to be the starting age. Whether you have whether you have a lot of money or not, you need to do it, because no matter how much wealth, no matter how much wealth your ancestors have left you, you still need to keep building on it. So, for instance, in Jamaica, the age at which you are classified as an adult is age 18. Recently, I was doing some research about national insurance entry ages, and there are some islands where the entry age is as low as age 14. So it means then that if you are at age 14, your family should be telling you to start then. Because most of the, as I understand it, most of the national insurance plans do allow for everybody in the country, once you get to the age at which the law states that you can participate. So whether you're working or not working, and I did not understand this when I was younger, and I lost a lot of benefits from marriages, from work, everything, because nobody told me anything about that. So let's try and see and communicate with the audience. Please go and look at the different laws and see what's the entry age. I can tell you about Jamaica. There's another island that goes to age 14. But look at your own your own country and see what's the law for age at which you can participate in these plans. When you do participate in them, those plans, as you can't see my picture behind me, but those plans that are established by the government, I call them foundation plans. You cannot build a house. I'm sorry, I sound so passionate, but I learned this late in life. You cannot build a house without a foundation. And those NIS or whatever other plans you have in your country are the foundation plans. Don't overlook them, because you are guaranteed to get something from them. The other plans, I did a great big investment, 2000 US some time ago. I don't want to call a country name, but it's very recently, and I'm older now. I'm nearly 70 now. And I lost almost every cent out of it. I asked certain questions, and they told me yes. I still ended up losing almost all of it. So when you know, if I didn't have national insurance, I would be up the creek without a paddle, because I started very late. So I think we need to communicate the starting point, which is early. What is your law for age of majority or adulthood when you can join these plans? So everybody needs to go and start that, look that up. And then now when you go into your employment now, which would probably be in your 20s, you'll be continuing building on that foundation. Because if you don't have a foundation, you can't build. Even if your ancestors left you a lot of money, you still need to continue with it. I just want to put that in, because in Jamaica, I don't write up anybody for a retirement plan if they don't have NIS. I say you go with the NIS, because the NIS won't fail you. My plan may fail you for whatever reason. I don't know, and I don't have that unless I have my actuary Chantel with me all the time. But but the national insurance, it is there to protect you. The other comment I want to make is that I don't know if Chantel is aware of this, or Shireen, or you, Judy, but I don't know, but internationally, because people are living longer, they're now looking at a retirement age of 80, because people are starting to plan for so much later in their lives. That's one other thing. And the other thing I wanted to say there as well, I just wanted to do a time horizon to say that it's a 40-year journey. It's a 40-year journey. I have had clients who have done the 40 years, and let me tell you, their money can't done in retirement, because they've accumulated so much capital. Because that's what retirement planning is all about. It's building this capital, which will give you the income, which is the distribution phase. So the accumulation phase is really about building the capital. And the distribution phase is about giving you that guaranteed lifetime indexed income, which you hinted about, and which is very important for everybody to know about. That's why I'm so glad the actuary is here. I tell my clients, when you're planning, you make sure you have in place a 5% in your plan, in your capital. So if you're earning $100,000 a year or $1 million, you multiply that by 10, so you should have 10 million in capital. And if you want to get 5% increase every year until you die, then you add another 5% on that 10 million to be able to know what capital you have. I don't think we've really trashed out that a lot in the Caribbean yet. And I'm hoping with Chantal as my actuary on this call that she will emphasize those things. Sorry about being so excited, but I just love talking about this subject.
Shireen, what is our, as Magdalena was talking, a point came to me, like, what is our entry age here in Grenada?
Our age of civil legal responsibility is 18.
Okay.
So at 18, you can do all that you need to do well, you are considered an adult.
Okay.
And everything that happens can happen from 18.
Okay. All right. Thank you. One of the things, as you all are talking, one of the things I want to also emphasize to people is that your retirement is your responsibility. So not because there is the NIS and the social securities means that you have to just sit back and depend on the government. No, it is your responsibility first and foremost. So you get something from your job, you get something from NIS or social security, but the bulk of it really comes from what you do with the money that you would have earned, right? Now, in this current environment that we are in, people living longer and all of that, some people will have to work post retirement to help supplement what they have, right? And of course, the general idea, as we've said before, is to have enough savings and investment to ensure that you don't outlive your pension. Because again, this is where the time horizon comes, this is where the horizon comes in, so that you understand how much time do you have to plan and how much you have to plan for after you retire, so you don't outlive that, right? And Chantel started talking about it, so I'm coming back to it. What are some of the typical investments people can make, and where can they put their money to ensure that they have enough to retire comfortably? Chantel?
Okay, sure. So let me give you a little background, I guess, on um, my career a little bit, right? So basically, I know I'm in and out of the Caribbean for the past like 2 years. But prior to that, most of my career for the like last 10 years prior to that, I've worked in the US. So unlike most Grenadians or most people who stay in the Caribbean, I'm very familiar with like investments in the US stock market, right? And to me, one tidbit I wanted people to get away with is don't be fearful of it, right? And my advice is that is a place where you can get a really good return for your money. Yes, you have to, I think, work with a financial advisor to really understand the markets and etc. However, you could put your money in something called an index fund, which is basically an average of every single stock that's out there in the stock market. For instance, there's this index called S&P 500. So it's 500 top companies in the US, and you invest like in all of them through one fund. You could put in like $300 into this, and be in every single stock. And when you do that, you would see that the average returns of the stock market go up 10% year over year. So when you in your 20s and so, you get so much returns, and way more than you would get if you just put your money into a savings account in the Caribbean, which gives you maybe less than 1% or 2% returns. Your capital will build multiple. Like in 10 years, you may have quadruple the amount of money that you would have if you just left it in a savings account. So this really reduces your financial burden 10 years out. So you could think about other stuff like, have more money to pay for your medical expenses, etc., and really focus on your lifestyle and have a better balance between. And so that is my recommendation, is to just be, I pick stocks, I pick individual companies, and I do all those investments. But if you don't have the capacity to even get an advisor to do all those stuff, my advice to people to really build a lot of wealth is to really invest in these index funds, because they it's simple. You just go on the website, you sign up, you get a brokerage account. This may sound foreign, but TD Ameritrade is an example of a brokerage account. You sign up online, you follow the forms, and then you add money to that account. So that's like a bank account. And then you invest in stocks. And I would say just invest in one stock. If you're not, is a VOO, and like leave it there for 10 years. Don't touch. You can watch it go up and down. 1 year, like for instance, this year, the markets were up like 20%, surprisingly, with the pandemic. But they were still up 20%. Next year it might go down a little bit. Next year it might go up 50%. So it's volatile. But in 10 years, your average returns have been like 10% year over year. And so just park that money and don't look at it and just until like 10 years later. And I assure you, you will get way more returns, like probably quadruple than just leaving it in a safe investment like a savings account. And then so after that 10 years, like say you started at 25 and you did that for 10 years, 35, then when you find like you have accumulated enough wealth, you could push that back into the savings account where it's more secure, and you can keep that there, right? For the next, when you're closer to retirement, maybe the last 15 years, you slowly pull out money. I won't even pull out all, but just slowly pull it out and that way you preserve the capital. So that's, to me, another strategy to invest. Like, you really, when you're young, you could take that risk. You could take the risk of moving with the markets up and down, because on average you get way more returns than you would just parking it in a savings account, which is like just putting it under your mattress. So that's one avenue. And the second avenue, I always like real estate. Real estate, I mean, I think a lot of people in the Caribbean are familiar with, and they're comfortable. And it gives you natural income every month in retirement. So if you can save to maybe purchase some real estate, that you could get like constant rents from in retirement, this could really supplement your retirement income and help you. And another way to do that, like for instance, I told you to put your money in a stock account. Maybe you realize in 10 years, hey, you've accumulated so much that you could buy a property. You could use that to now facilitate a property and get that rental income month of a month in retirement. So there's all different ways to invest, but those are I think are the top two that people can think about, and talk to their financial advisors, because I will lie, this thing could get very complicated, and even explaining it, I hear how complicated it could be with somebody who's not familiar with the markets. And but I would just say that VOO, if you could research that, is a stock, VOO, sorry. And so that's a great stock that is an index in the market that just gives you the average returns of the whole market. So you don't have to think about picking and all these craziness that investment advisors do. You just again, you think about again the average of the returns of the stock market, and that average historically over the last 50 years has been 10%. So you want to get 10% returns if you leave your money there and don't look at it, right? And then also always think about real estate. Real estate is a great way to get rental income in retirement to supplement you and be at that income salary. Like, for instance, as I said, a lot of people are going home with 40% of salary from Social Security here in Grenada, right? So you could supplement that and get another maybe 15% of your salary if you have a good rental property that's bringing you income in retirement. So think about ways that you can save to accumulate this real estate, etc. And it's a good way to preserve the capital when you have real estate. Real estate values only go up and up and up. It's not as liquid, so you can't pull it out when you want. It might not be easy to sell your property, but I think it's more about a rental income to me when you're in retirement. And then that's another way. We talk about having a legacy. When you have real estate, it's like a double-edged sword. You have something to leave to your family. So, that's another reason why I like that as an option to invest. You now have a physical asset that, your family can use, and your descendants, their dependents, when you're gone. So you leave back something for them that's really tangible and will always retain value.
One of the things that has happened recently in the Caribbean that I know would have put a lot of people off and really caused a lot of heartaches to so many people is the Clico Baiko situation. So people would have been saving and doing exactly what Chantal is saying. They started early. They put their money in this plan because they're supposed to get so much returns back and all of that. Now, I am now. Let's say I am now 60. The plan fall apart. Every single cent I've had went down the drain, and we've also seen that with some other funds in the states. Now, Shireen, I don't know if I'm just looking, not even so much from a legal standpoint, but I'm just trying. I just want to find out, like, how do we get people who have experienced that kind of thing to get back on, if you would say, the proverbial horse and start riding it to get, because they may still have another 20, 30 years to live.
So, from a non legal perspective, I believe it's an issue of trust. The Caribbean is a small place, so more than likely, the person who sold you the policy in, for example, Clico or Baiko, you knew that person. because insurance is something that you either believe in or you don't. And for some people, it takes a lot of convincing to even invest in a life insurance policy, furthermore, as an investment vehicle. And so when the person invested in the Clico with these great images in their mind, and as you said, Judy, the bubble burst and all of their savings just disappeared in one go. It's hard to trust again, which is where I agree with Chantel in that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You diversify. And now I'm going to get into the legal thing. You diversify, you talk to someone first, you get everything in writing, you understand what it is that you're getting into. And to my mind, that is if you can afford it, you get a personal investment manager if you can, and let that person assist you in managing your wealth. You may want to, or managing your investments. You may want to be a little bit more cautious, or if you can afford it, if you've had something else accumulated somewhere else that you can now invest again, you work with a personal investment manager, and work out what is the best plan for you. And if you lost all that wealth in a particular scheme at 50, you say, well, look, I have 10, 15, 20 more years before I really want to start pulling down on that wealth. So tell me what I can do now to diversify my assets, but get a good return on the investment. And that's my non-legal perspective and / legal perspective on getting back on the horse, Judy.
Thank you. Magdalena, what are some of the other things, quickly, that gets people off course from their financial planning and saving?
Well, I just want to go back to one point about real estate. What I would say is, and I did this with my children. When my children were young, the first thing I really ingrained in them is, because they live overseas, is that they must own their own home. Because when you get into that habit of paying a mortgage or understand how it works, I think it helps you as you get older to also manage your own real estate and do something different. In terms of the question you just asked, what are some of the other things that what? Repeat for me.
What are some of the other things that gets people off course from?
I think some of the other things that gets people off course is usually when they get married or they get into a relationship, a cohabiting or marriage relationship, and money was not discussed together. I always say this question, ask this question in my seminars. 1 + 1 equal? Anybody? Don't give me an actuarial response. Let me help you. 1 + 1 equal infinity. Because when two people get together, or when you participate into NIS or any other investment, it is a group of people that get together and we don't know where it's going to end up. So it is a lot of the relationship issues that can take you off course. And I'm going to say something now, and I hope the men who are listening are not vexed with me. And I hope Judy takes this as a cue. I want you to run some sessions for our men so they feel more empowered, because I think that our men in the Caribbean feel a little bit alienated. Here we have an actuary, here we have an attorney, and you have Magda talking about all these things. Okay, so where am I in all of this? And I think that our men, and I could be wrong, this is how I feel in Jamaica, our men feel a little bit alienated. So if you get a man in a relationship and he doesn't know where to go, then the whole dolly house, then what you find, the woman now start now to look after the things themselves, and them can't bother the man. I have to go many times and ask the woman, so who you put here as your beneficiary on this retirement savings? Oh, me pick me, ma'am. I said, why? Oh, and they start again all kind of, I said, but you must put your spouse, whether you're living with or you're married, you must put him first. Oh, no, who are you? Oh, are you telling me? And by the time I'm finished, I have to spend days saying to them, I am not collecting your form until you put your spouse on there. Okay, ma'am, may I write it? I have to explain to them. So those are some of the basic things that causes old age poverty, because the 1+1 is in a relationship isn't looking at the future, isn't planning. They're not putting the 1+1 together. They're not thinking, okay, if I become disabled, at least I have this for my surviving spouse or partner. Or if I die, they can have this amount and we can work together. Retirement planning is not about you across there and me here, and we're doing our own things. But when we get to bed at night, we have intimacy, but we have no intimacy of the dollars. That don't make any sense. You must have intimacy of the dollars and the bedtime, not one without the other, right? So I can see you guys laughing at me. So it's very important that we explain those things to the public, because we have to delineate culture from the law. This is what the law says, what the culture says. The important thing is that we are all destined to be wealthy, but it requires a lot of guidance, motivation, how you work together in your home, in your communities, and also to the wider country. That's why everybody must join the Social Security plan. No matter if, you must. Because if you don't join it, then I won't have no retirement income. Last point I want to make is people not understanding the whole concept of coordination of benefits. So I have had to be telling a lot of people who worked with me many years at Life for Jamaica, have you gone back to claim your plan? Oh, Magda, there's nothing there for me. I said, have you gone back to claim? Because I studied law as well. And then when they go, oh, Magda, I now have $10 million and I now have 50 million. I said, so if you didn't go back and ask, you wouldn't get it. So the coordination of benefits between all the places where you've worked in the Caribbean, like I have that issue right now dealing with, and all the places you've worked outside of the Caribbean, because every country you've worked in, there's a requirement by law based on the ILO that you must contribute to Social Security or to national insurance. But we tend to forget it and don't tend to include it in our planning. And that's why I tend to go back to it, because once you understand how that works and you understand the time horizons, when you start, when you can claim the benefits, then you get a better foundation to work with. If I didn't live in England and didn't have income coming from there, I don't know where I'd be today, because in Jamaica, the inflation goes and, as you wake up, you go to bed tonight, the item costs $1. By the time you wake up tomorrow morning, it's $5. So if you don't have that kind of a indexation mentality, you're going to find that retirement is going to be a very, very hard, lonely, and poverty-stricken, and that's not the desire that I think we ought to have.
No, we certainly,
hold on. Yes,
we
go ahead.
we certainly don't want to keep this generational poverty going and going.
No,
which
no.
brings me to a point. But before I get to that point, I want to say that in studies show that more than 50% of couples have no discussion about money before they get married.
Yes, it's so sad.
Absolutely none. And
So sad.
90% avoid having that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It brings me now. Give me 1 second. Quickly. All right. Yes. So it brings me to the point, as we were talking about generational poverty. It brings me to a point now that I have, and it's a thing that I have with us in the Caribbean, right? We don't believe in building generational wealth. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked in insurance, I remember one girl saying to me, well, I've had to struggle. Why can't my daughter struggle as well? And that is what keeps us in this cycle of poverty generation after generation. So I'm going to ask this question. What is generational wealth, and why is it essential that we seek to better the generations that come after us? And I'm going to pose this question to Shireen, not from a legal standpoint, because the Chantel and Magda will give me the financial and the actuarial standpoint, but I want to hear from you.
Well, to me, the concept of generational wealth is ensuring that the persons who come after you are in a position to, one, look after themselves, also look after the persons after them. So you're looking down the line. You're not just looking at your immediate children. You're looking at your grandchildren. You're looking at your great grandchildren, and you're looking to say, I've been able to accumulate this, and I've been able to live with this. But as Magdalena rightfully pointed out, if you live in a country or a jurisdiction where the morning you wake up, you go to bed one night and it's $10, and the next morning you wake up, so the gas is $10, and the next morning you wake up, gas is $25. You can't win, right? You can't live like that in that level of uncertainty. And I'm not saying that any wealth that you pass on is infinite, but at least your beneficiary, your immediate beneficiary, they have some sort of cushion, I think. And so if you put that as part of your retirement, early retirement planning, you know that the ones coming after you, they will not have to, what was the concept? Struggle the way they struggle. They won't have to struggle like that. They have a cushion that they can build on, which brings me to the point of talking to your children about building wealth. And so it's not just a matter of the children sitting back and waiting until mommy and daddy dead, because yeah, they'll look after me, I stand to benefit off of their will. That's just laziness, right? And that's a whole different topic. But to me, that's the concept of generational wealth, that you're looking to ensure that your immediate, and then your next immediate, and then the next immediate, that they have some type of cushion. They are in a position to build on that for them. And it's a way of investing into society as a whole. That's my take on it. That's my non-legal take on it.
Magdalena, I want to hear what your take is on it.
Well, my take on it is guided by a text in the Bible: "A good man leaveth an inheritance for his children's children." And I didn't hear that Bible text spoken about when I was younger, and I didn't understand what it is. But when you look at my own history, my grandfather is from Antigua, and apparently he was a very wealthy man. He married a lady from Barbados, and I don't know what happened, but apparently after he died, the business that he had, it just went haywire. And when I got to my grandmother at age 4 in Trinidad, because I was born in Curacao and lived in Suriname, there was nothing. She was really in abject poverty. Then my father is from Suriname. My mother is from Trinidad. I was born in Curacao, brought up in Suriname, and apparently when we went to Suriname to live, my father was building a house with my mother on the family property. I don't know what happens. The next thing I know, I'm on a plane going to Trinidad at age 4. So clearly there was no generational wealth planning at all. And I don't know what happened, because she was a very, very nice lady. But I kept wondering, but how come, my grandfather was so rich and he had so much? And so clearly there were no conversations about it. And then my father decided when I'm 2 years old that, what happened? I'm going to heaven. I'm going to die. So he just gone off and dead. Leave my mother with 2 children to take care of and no discussion about income. I mean, she got through life, but she just about got through life. So that tells me that, as Shireen said, it's very important for these discussions in the home, whether you're cohabiting or whether you're married. It's very, very important, because we have to plan for the next generation. We have what we have today because people way ahead planned for us, or else we couldn't be living today. So it means then that you not only have the macro, you not only have the macro principles about generational wealth planning, but you have to now take it down to the micro level. and then talk about it and help people to deal with it. And that's why I'm so glad that Shireen. Let me make one more point because I know time is running out.
Mhm.
I decided in Jamaica, and this is for Shireen now, that, and I don't know if the same thing applies there. I decided in Jamaica that to write a will only is not the only way for generational wealth. I like the idea of a testamentary trust or an inter vivos trust. I don't know if you'll have time to
We
comment on
come in,
that
but
or respond
we
to
come
that.
into all of that, Magdalena. We come into all of that, right?
Okay, okay. All right. Sorry
Yeah,
about that. Yes.
no problem. So I'm coming to that because when we hear the word will, because I also teach a course in financial wellness, and when we talk about will, everybody think like God are going to die. Why I need to do a will?
Yes,
A will
tomorrow.
is associated with I am going to die. So I
Yes.
know it's a bigger part, but I want to pull that out, and I want to ask Shireen, can you explain to us, please, what is a will and what is the purpose of having one?
So, a will is a legal document that comes into effect when a person dies and records how that person wants their estate to be disposed of. I hear what Judy has said and I fully endorse it. That people hear the word will and they associate it with death. They don't think of will as part of retirement planning. Somehow, will has a voodoo connection to it. The importance of having a will, though, is if you don't have a will, where you, the person, gets to decide how you want your estate to be disposed of, is that if you die or when you die, and I know you're dead and you really don't care anymore, but when you die, the law will decide how your estate is disposed of. And the difficulty there is that the law may decide it in a way that that's not what you wanted, really. But like I said, you're dead, you don't care. So it's your beneficiary's problem at this point if you didn't make a will. No, a will sets out who you want to be your executors or your executrix. It sets out your trustees, your guardians, the persons who are responsible for administering your estate. It sets out any specific gifts that you want to leave, be it land, money, shares, clothes, jewelry, because everybody thinks, I think sometimes Caribbean people, not just Grenadians, but the West Indies as a whole, when we hear estate, for some reason we've associated the word estate with land. Estate is anything that you own, anything. So whether it be a particular pencil that has sentimental value to you, or what you call those nice pens with the little thing, the Mont Blanc pens or whatever, that's your estate, right? Your house, your land, your car, all of those are your estate. Your specific piece of jewelry that your mother gave you when you were 12 years old. You know, she had 4 girl children and she gave each child a bracelet and she said, if I give you nothing else, I'm giving you that. That's part of your estate because you want to hand that down. It has special memories or special emotional connection to you. And so it sets out also how you want everything to be given away. The one important thing I want to say about a will is that a will is what we call ambulatory. It can move because the will doesn't take effect until you die. And so therefore, if you acquire another piece of land, so you have a piece of land now and you acquire another piece of land, you can change your will to incorporate that new piece that you've just purchased. So wills are ambulatory in nature and they move. You can make a will up until your deathbed once you are of sound mind and memory and you know the nature and effect of what you're signing. So a will is very, very important. Wills don't have to be complex. Wills can be as simple as I leave everything to Judy Makachon. And whatever else is left, I leave to Chantal. That's it. Yes, Magdalena.
Um, can I say something there? Can you go on and can you address the whole aspect of testamentary trust?
So trust.
Just 1 second, Shireen, because we coming up to trust. We're
Yeah.
coming up to trust, right? I want to talk about wills, and so that people have a good understanding of what a will is not.
Right.
Yeah.
A will, so before I get there, Judy, though,
Mm.
a will is also important because in specific situations, if you die, when you die, certain things can happen. So at Grenada, I can't speak for Jamaica, although I think the legislation is similar. At Grenada, provision is not made for an unmarried couple. So when you die here, if you
Mm.
die without a will, your wife or your husband will automatically get half of your estate. Now,
Mhm.
if you die without a will and you're living with a partner, nothing. And you could have been living together for 50 years, nothing. Right? And all the wealth that you would have accumulated together, the partner who is left, the surviving partner, has to now go to the court looking for a constructive trust for the court to make a determination what their entitlement is. So it speaks to what you want and how you want it. If you want a child to get something at age 18 or at age 21, because you know the child is a bit of a spendthrift, or even at age 28 or 31 or whatever. And so you want to manage that child's ability to spend what you have developed over time. You put it in a trust and you direct how the trust is to dispose of the assets over time to that child. What a will is not, a will, a will is not an investment vehicle. Like I said, a will speaks to how you want your estate disposed of. A will is also not a carrot and a stick. You can't beat a child over a head or beat beneficiaries over the head with a will and say, if you don't do this or if you don't do that, you're not going to be in my will. I actually just dislike, and I find that whole attitude about being in a will or not being in a will very, very distasteful. But a will is how you want to dispose of your estate in a timely and efficient manner.
Is it so? We have wills, but a will, Shireen, is part of a bigger estate planning, right?
Yes, a will is only part of your estate planning because you can do you Magdalena was touching on it earlier. You can dispose of items during your lifetime, inter vivos dispositions. So you can give your property away during your life if you want to remain in the house because ain't nobody going with my paintings but me, right? You can give away your house but retain a life interest in it. So and that saves over time, you know where it is. You don't have to worry about that particular thing. But again, depending on the circumstances, and each person will make a determination depending on their level of wealth, if they need a financial planner to help them to craft the will, they will know how they want to dispose of the property, whether or not the child is responsible or the spouse. They want to leave it all to the spouse or leave half to the spouse and half to the children or leave it to the spouse for that person's lifetime and thereafter to the children. It just depends on what they want to do with their estate. The one thing I would say too, Judy, is in a will, and this is just a common sense tip though, please don't leave instructions about how you want to be buried or how you want your body to be disposed of because after you die, people are dealing with the grief and whatever. So just tell them your wishes up front. Everybody knows I want to be buried in the front yard in St. Paul's under the mango tree. That's not possible anymore, but that actually is one of my fervent wishes. And I also want to be buried in red with my eyebrows on and red lipstick. So I told everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. And
So,
I'm going down to some Marshall, Judy.
right?
Mhm, mhm.
So, a will, yes, is just a part of the bigger estate, and I just want to emphasize, if you have a child, you have an estate. So you right? If you own a car, you have an estate.
Yes,
Whatever little things. 'Cause a lot of people think that if I'm not rich, if I'm not filthy rich, or if I'm not whatever, I don't have anything to leave. but people forget a lot of times about all that land that they have and die without doing anything about it. And then the families just end up in all of this
So Judy,
melee.
can I just
Yeah,
stick
sure.
one quick pin in?
Hmm.
And one of the values of leaving a will, I can speak specifically for Grenada, is because the biggest number of court cases you have in Grenada is families fighting over land. Mommy says she was going to leave this piece to me, and the piece from the mango tree down to the river is for me, and the piece up by the pig pen was for me, and then somebody else comes in the middle and they put their house in between the two pieces. So then all three children are now fighting, right? And that's one of the biggest issues in Grenada. Seriously, I would say 75. Yeah, I think about 75 is a good percentage of our court actions are land actions. And at about of that 75%, about 50% is families fighting over land after the parents did. Make a will. Yes, Magdalena.
What people don't realize is that when you have a situation like that, what you are doing is building generational poverty and not generational wealth, because the time you take to fight over it and the
They're
costs that
fighting.
are involved, I mean to say, I think I want to come to Grenada and live and be an attorney to do those
No, you
cases.
don't. No, you don't.
Because
It's too
I think
emotional.
that's why this program is such a good program as well, to help people to move out of that arena and to understand its generational wealth, and therefore spend the money while you're alive to get it done properly. And that's why I prefer testamentary trust, where in a trust you say to your family, I leave this for you, but guess what? I have named trustees to look after it for you. And therefore, you will get it at a particular time. That's how the wealthy people do it. They don't make wills, they do trusts. And it's the trust that allows for the generational wealth. That's what I have found. I don't know what you have found.
And
Um,
we will get to trust.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to trust. Chantal, you have anything you want to add in terms of wills and um estate from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everybody is saying. And especially Grenada, it seems like the only people who benefit from not having a will is the lawyers. Like, and it's such a good fact. And I would like to re-emphasize that by not having a will, you're actually preventing generational wealth and you're forcing your kids kind of into poverty. I just wanted to reinstate that point that Magdalena made, because if you think about it, I could actually, how long does it take to settle these cases? I could see kids fighting forever and they never even get to use the land. So, and half the time they have to pay all these lawyers. So the land really ends up in the hands of the lawyers. So to me, by not having a will and not planning your estates, and you know, you're really setting up your family to have no legacy and to lose everything that they have. Because how are you going to fight if you're fighting over land so badly? Like, you know, eventually you're just spending all your money on lawyers.
Yep. And I have Magdalena. Magdalena, I promise you, I'm coming to trust. 1 second, but I have one more question for Shireen before we get to trust, because it is something that fascinates me a little bit when I hear the stories, and it is about power of attorney, right? And I just want to know, like, quickly, like, in what instances would people use one, and what are some of the ways that they can safeguard themselves against abuse from the people who they've given this power of attorney to? Shireen.
A power of attorney is another legal document in which one person who is the donor, so say me, I give written authorization to another person who is, so Chantal or to Magdalena, who is called the attorney to represent or act on my behalf in my private affairs, business, or some other legal matter. So I'll give you an example, a personal example, for example, for thing. I was sick really sick back in 2008. I won't give you all the details, but it was quite bad. And so that's when I was in the Jamaica for the longest time, Magdalena. And so I actually gave my sister a power of attorney because I was going to be out of the jurisdiction, out of Grenada. I couldn't deal with anything in Grenada. I wasn't in a position to sign anything. And so I therefore gave her, Rosalind, a power of attorney to deal with my affairs. The power of attorney document will only last as long as the person, the donor, wants it to last. So it may be a very specific power of attorney to do something, to carry a court case, or to do something specific. Or it can be a very general power of attorney, which is usually the case when there's an elderly person and they are not mobile anymore. They can't get to the bank. They can't get to the supermarket. So someone is authorized to act on their behalf, enter into transactions for them, that sort of thing. Having said that, though, in giving a power of attorney to someone, I go back to the question, the issue of trust. When you give someone a power of attorney, that is a, no pun intended, a powerful, powerful action. And so you have to trust that the attorney will act in your best interests. Because if you give somebody the power of attorney and they're able to go into your bank account, well, hey, you know, freeness then. They don't think you will miss a little $5 here or like a $10 here. So it has to be absolute trust existing between the donor and the person who holds the attorney. And what I will also say is a power of attorney, apart from being very specific, the power of the power that lies in that document will die once the donor dies. So if I die and I've given my power to Chantel, once I die, that power of attorney dies. She no longer has access to act on my behalf.
Great. So I'm going to come and I'm telling you, this is interesting, and we've gone past and people are still here with us, people are still commenting and so on. So it really is necessary, right? And so I'm coming to the question that Magdalena wants answers to, and that is of trust. Now, most of us in the Caribbean hear about trust when we're looking at a movie, and then we think trust is for the rich and famous, and so I don't have any I'm not rich and famous, so I really shouldn't put a trust in place. So I want to ask Shireen, is setting up a trust an option that people can use to build generational wealth, even if they think they're not rich and famous?
Yes. The one thing, the one pin I would stick though is that, and I'm glad you used the word Caribbean people, we in the West Indies, somehow we fear trust. It's not something that is used very often. And it's not something you hear a lot of people inquiring into. Can I set up a trust? What are the benefits of a trust? What are the disadvantages of a trust? But trust, yes, can be used to build generational wealth, because you can have trust where you ask your trustees to invest money for your beneficiaries, or for the persons who will be your beneficiaries. So if you know that you're leaving, let's use a round figure. I like nice round figures. You're leaving $100,000. You leave it up to the, so if you, and you can appoint a person or persons or a firm of an actuary, you can appoint a firm of solicitors, you can appoint an accounting firm to be your trustee. You can tell your trustee, I want this money invested, and then the beneficiary can live off of the income or off of the interest of certain investments, and then the prime investment. So you rent out this house and you give the person the rental, and then they get the actual house at a different age. So they get the rental from age 21 up to age 40, and then they get the actual house at 40. So it's building up, and the house is increasing in value. So you have generational wealth being built along the way. And they're very different trusts, because trusts in the US, for example, are very different from trusts in the United Kingdom. And the various trusts have different tax benefits in the US versus in the United Kingdom versus in the Caribbean. Like I said, in the Caribbean, trusts are not really used, but they can be used and they are useful.
Okay, Magdalena, go ahead.
Okay. At least I make you laugh, Shireen. What I learned as well is that there's testamentary trust and there's inter vivos. Now, the testamentary trust is what I'm trying to get people in the Caribbean to be more au fait with or familiar with. Why? In a testamentary trust, if I'm going to give you this book, I would say, Shireen, I've left this book for you in my testamentary trust. Now, I've got trustees who are going to manage it for me, after I die, right? So you don't get the ownership of this. But Shireen, I will tell you this. If the trustees don't manage it very well, you can sue them. But in a will, there's nobody to sue. Once the will says, I am going to give you this, and you take it, and it's passed on to you for ownership, you can squander it, you can do whatever you want with it. There's nobody who can tell you you didn't manage it well. But in a trust, in terms of the transition phase from one generation to another and the succeeding ones, I really am glad that I got exposure to testamentary trust because I like it. I find it's far more it's far more reliable. I haven't read any case law on it not being reliable, but probably I need to do that. But I think it's far more reliable than just having a will, because when you do a will, there still can end up a lot of argument. But when you do a trust, everybody can still have access to the assets, but nobody really owns it until when the trust deed or the rules say when everybody's going to own it. And that is what I like about it. The other thing I like about, in terms of retirement plan, the inter vivos trust. So you get to about 70, 80 years old, and you really can't be bothered to find out whether you should go to where again? Chantel? Go to VU and invest or go where? Because remember, that investments don't stop when you become retired because of disability or old age. It continues until you die, because that's just life. You have to keep investing. So an inter vivos trust, now you can then have trustees while you're alive, and you can say to them, I want you to invest this money for me so that I can get $50 million a month. They'll either tell you, no, you can only get $1,000 a month, or they'll tell you, yes, you can get a 50 million. So to me, that is a much better way to go when you're older, because we see a lot of retired old people who really don't know what to do. They're not really interested in sitting down with no investment manager. They're not really invested, but their risk profile is low, medium, or high. They just want to get income to live the life they want until they die. So that's why I like all three of them in the context of retirement planning and generational wealth planning: a will, testamentary trust, and an inter vivos trust.
Shireen.
There's one more I would add to that list, Magdalena, which is the accumulation trust, which is a version of what you're talking about. So that it's where the trustees can accumulate income within the trust, and they add it to the trust capital, and they will be able to pay out of the trust.
So I find that very interesting, right? So I just want to ask. So I've been left. So a trust is set up. I'm one of the beneficiaries of that trust. Are you saying that now I could put money into that trust?
So are you still alive?
Yes, I'm still alive.
So the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But it depends on the terms of the trust, because remember, some trusts are closed. Once they're formed, they're closed, and the trustees can then only act within the confines of whatever the trustee actually says. But if the trust has a term where it allows you to invest into the trust periodically, then yes, certainly you can.
Okay. Chantel?
We will actually have more questions on this topic for you guys. Like, who exactly are the trustees? And you say that you can sue. So I think it would be good for the audience to know who exactly will you be suing. Is it the accountants, and who are good trustees to have, etc.? Can you like explain that dynamic in the trust?
So,
So I mean, Shireen, yeah.
So the trustees are the person. Once the trust has been established, the trustees is the person or is the entity. Because remember, I said it could be an accounting firm, it could be a law firm, it could be one person, two persons. The trustee or trustees are the persons who are then responsible for the management of the trust within the confines of the trustee. If a trustee obviously dips his or her hand or its hand into the pot, that is clear negligence and clear grounds for a lawsuit. So yes, a trustee can be sued once it is found that, well, once it is alleged that they're doing something wrong, there's some sort of, what's the word I want, malfeasance going on, and of course it can result in a court action. But then again, you must bring evidence to prove. He who claims must prove. He who alleges must prove. And so you then have to provide evidence to the court that there was this wrongdoing going on.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Now, thank you, ladies. This conversation was extremely interesting. But we have to wrap up because I know we could be here for the next hour having this discussion.
We
But
can.
do you have, each one of you, what do you have any more tips or advice to give to our listeners before we wrap up? And we could just start from the top. Well, Shireen, and then come down and go around. So Shireen.
Plan early. Don't be like me. I'm one of those who, unfortunately, Chantal, I'm so sorry. I started thinking about it in my 40s. So now I'm catching up, but I'm doing my best to catch up. But it's taught me a lot in terms of at 65 or 70, I really don't want to be working as hard as I think I'm working now. And I've spoken about it to my spouse and how we want to share our remaining years together. And so think about it. We have no children to leave it to, but we know what we want to do with all the books that form part of our legacy, and we're going to leave it to a library, right? So that's part of our legacy planning. Start early. I agree with you totally. Start in your 20s, ride the horse, stay on the horse, and trust. Trust what you're doing. Speak to the professionals about it, get advice, but plan early. You won't regret it.
Magdalena.
Yes. So this has been a really great discussion. And I want to go back, first of all, to Sean's comment. I think it's Sean who said that this
Chantel?
program, pardon me?
Chantel?
Sean, no, Sean, one of your viewers made a comment that
Oh,
this program
okay.
should be on in schools and stuff like that. And yes, there he is. No, it's Levon or
Levon.
Sean. Yes,
Mhm.
but yes, and this is something I've been dreaming of as well. So little by little, all my dreams are coming true. This program plus some of the comments, I'm really happy about that. The comment that I would want to leave it is this: remember, everybody, including us, retirement financial planning is generational wealth planning because you are building capital. Remember that. So because you're building capital, you need to have your will, you need to have your testamentary trust, you need to have either or your interviewer's trust as you get older. The other thing is know the formula. Last one I want to make, know the formula. Chantel spoke about it, and if I was some of you, I would kind of make friends with Chantal because really and truly, you cannot do retirement planning without an actuary. I'm sorry if I shouted too loud there. But you must have an actuary. It's not a matter of if. You must be close to an actuary. And therefore, the actuary can tell you, okay, you're earning $100,000 a year now. What is the capital you need now based on what's happening in order to give you, say, 100% of your income at retirement and indexed by a certain amount? Because you cannot do that retirement formula without including an indexation part of it, because it won't last. So, I really hope that everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. I just had a whopping time. I really enjoyed myself. And I'd like to thank Judy as well for organizing it. Really, really enjoyed it.
No problem. Chantel?
I think sure. I mean, I would reiterate everything they said. Start early. To me, your accumulation phase should be double the time as to what you expect your retirement time to be. So if you're expecting to retire for 20 years, make sure you save for 40 years, right? And but the number one thing, if you don't remember anything else, is that in your working years, I do a financial fitness workshop, and y'all have encouraged me that I really need to get back out there and do more of them. And I do them free of charge, and just try to do them to different organizations. And the number one thing and the number one rule that I ask people to take away from those financial fitness workshops is that you need to allocate your salary, right? You need 50% to be your basic needs. You need 30% of your salary to go to your wants, and 20% of your salary to go to your savings. How you save can change, and we could go all into that. I give you all some suggestions. However, just make sure you're putting away 20% of your salary early in your career as much as possible. So try to live by that 50, 30, 20 rule as you go through your working career. That will help you both psychologically and lifestyle, etc. And that's my number one takeaway. And I'll say the second biggest takeaway as well is know how much you need to go home with in retirement to live comfortably. What is that magic number for you to live the type of lifestyle you want to live in retirement? Do you need 100% of your salary? Do you want to reduce your lifestyle? All these things depend on how much you're going to take home in retirement. So that is a second goal that you could set for yourself. Hey, I want to live just like I'm living now. So I definitely want to maintain 100% salary. That would guide a lot of your financial decisions. You could look at how you're saving, what your expenses are, so you know how much you need to accumulate to go home with 100% of your salary. Make sure you're in the right investments. Make sure you have enough real estate income to supplement your NIS, etc. Just focus on how much money you want to take home in retirement. What percentage of your salary do you think is what you want to go home with in retirement? And then you could plan to make that happen. So those are the two things. 50% of your salary go to basic needs, 30% of your salary should go to your wants, and 20% of your salary should be saved. That is the golden rule when you're going through retirement. And lastly, think about when you're setting your retirement planning and you're setting retirement goals, what percentage of your salary do you need to go home with? That's my takeaway.
All right. Thanks. Thank you very much. I just want to say to our listeners, remember the importance of your time horizon in planning for your retirement. And remember, it's never too early to start, or too late, because sometimes, people might think, well, I haven't started and I'm now 50. What do I do? Start anyway, right? And as it relates to leaving a legacy on building generational wealth, I want to encourage people to think of themselves as a relay runner, where each runner runs their portion of the race and pass the baton over to the next runner. And President Obama said this. He said, and I quote, "I saw myself as a relay runner. I would take the baton and I would run my leg of the race, and then I'd pass the baton to someone else. Every generation tries to make progress, knowing that what we do is not going to be perfect. Hopefully, we've run the leg of our race effectively, and the world has gotten a little bit better. And I would say your family have gotten a little bit better." So my question to our audience is, what will your legacy be? What will live on long after you are gone? Thank you, Shireen, Magdalena, and Chantel, for joining me today. This was a mouthful, of armful, of everything full. So thank you very much. I know that the listeners have a lot
Yes.
to think about as they think about where they are in the retirement process. So thank you very, very much. I want to remind our listeners about the Money Mindset Detox Masterclass this Saturday. Click on the link to get on the registration list. And I just want to say that those who take action now will most likely be the ones who are successful. Everyone else is risking regret and getting left behind. So don't hesitate or say you'll come back later. Click on the link to register. Registration actually closes in 17 minutes. So thank you for joining me. I am your host, Judy McCutcheon. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media. So I'll see you all next week, same place, same time. And next week we'll be discussing risk management and insurance. Now, insurance is a real hot topic in the Caribbean. It is extremely hot, because there's so many misconceptions about insurance, what it is, and so on. So we'll be breaking that down next week. Until then, thank you very much. Stay safe and please follow the physical distancing protocols. Thank you.